Talking Paranormal.
This week, proud to be joined by my friend here from the Dark Paranormal, and we need to talk about ghosts. It's Kevin Eustace.
Hello.
Hey, so Kevin, tell the people who you are, what your podcasts are all about.
So my name's Kev, as you've just very rightly said. I do two podcasts. One's We Need to Talk About Ghosts, again, like you've said, and one's a Dark Paranormal, again, like you've said. But they're both clearly paranormal podcasts. I started the We Need to Talk About Ghosts maybe about 5 years ago. And that's more of in all honesty, there are two parts of my personality when it comes to the paranormal. There is We Need to Talk About Ghosts is me as me now as you're speaking to me. It's very informal. It's me speaking as I think, but then on the other side, so it's semi-comedy based, or it attempts to be semi-comedy based. But then on the other side, there's the part of my personality that, like to the right of this PC, there's about 150 paranormal books where I'm like seriously into the subject as well. So the Dark Paranormal allows me to do that more serious element of looking at paranormal cases and giving them really the credit and respect that a lot of the stories that people send in deserve. But I think both audiences understand that. So anyone submitting a story to We Need to Talk About Ghosts knows full well it'll be discussed. There'll be an opinion given. But there may be some levity within there too. Not necessarily a mick take, but there'll be banter about it. I hate the word banter, but there will be. Whereas with the Dark Paranormal, it's more of a serious take. So it's people have said in the past, why are you putting on a personality for the Dark Paranormal? And I'm like, I'm not. That's another part of me. It's just one being more focused on the paranormal, as opposed to the other show has me partner on it. We talk about the cat, things like that. Whereas the Dark Paranormal is me in when I'm alone. That's how I am with the paranormal.
So yeah, they definitely have two different Venn diagrams. Like you say, I prefer ghosts. That's the first one I found you on, and I was like, this one stands out. This guy's sort of answers himself, and I thought, is that a tick because you're on your own? You're sort of answering, hello. Do you know what I mean? Is that dual personality thing? Has that come about just because you're reading and you're talking to yourself effectively?
Yeah. In essence, yeah. And also I do, it's a very strange thing which I've not had checked is a lot of people have got in touch, just genuinely seriously, and suggested to get tested for ADHD because of how my brain moves from topic to topic as I'm talking. And that's something I've never like reflected on myself personally, but yes, but I also will when We Need to Talk About Ghosts, when I'm talking about a particular story I've just read out or whatever, because I don't pre-read them, I will give them a cursory glance to make sure there's no profanity or non excessive profanity, and that it doesn't that it makes some sort of semblance of order. And the reason for that, when I read it out, I want to give my genuine reaction at the end, or mid-story sometimes if something happens mid-story, and then at the end I like to know that I'm giving my genuine, honest impression. I'm also my thought process. So you'll often hear me arguing with myself or quickly saying, actually, no, thinking about it, it's this. And just so it shows my brain working out, as opposed to me pre-reading it, coming up with what I'm going to say after it, and then doing that and delivering that with my final opinion. Because I think, like a lot of people, that's what a lot of people will do when they hear a ghost story or a paranormal tale, is they'll go through the logic, they'll go through the rationale, they'll think, is that actually possible? And I kind of vocalize that on their behalf, if you like.
Yeah. Do you put a lot of hours in because you've got your Patreons? It seems like you're forever looking for content. You're probably forever recording it. Are you juggling it well?
In all honesty, the two shows are surprisingly different in terms of the time that they eat up. So we need to talk about ghosts is a 30 to 40 minute show, which is out every week. Then there's 2 Patreon shows I do off the back of that. One is they're both 30 minutes. Then the Dark Paranormal is 30 to 50 minutes, dependent on the length of the story. And a Dark Paranormal Patreon is 30 minutes. So they're all released each week. But the benefit of the We Need to Talk About Ghost stuff is, like I said earlier, it's not script. Other than the people who send in their stories, it's not scripted. And when I say it's not scripted, I mean, like I said earlier, when we were talking off camera, I ramble quite a lot, and that fills a lot of airtime, really. Whereas with the Dark Paranormal, because it is a dramatic reading and it's intended to be a dramatic reading, I edit people's stories so that there are audible jump scares, for want of a better phrase, and it's to build that suspense. That takes a lot more time. So the way my work and week normally goes is Monday morning. So tomorrow morning, it'll take me maybe an hour all in to record a full We Need to Talk About Ghosts, which is no time at all for a podcast, and that's including editing and everything. Whereas then Tuesday, I need to spend a good 4 to 5 hours prepping the Dark Paranormal episode, putting in where the effects are going to go, how things are going to be read, because your tone and your the sort of the trying to think of the right word, your cadence, really, that you're going to deliver things with is very important within those sort of dramatic readings. And then Wednesday, as opposed to taking an hour, a Dark Paranormal recording will take maybe 3 hours to put in, because there's the effects, there's a lot of re-recording if I think something hasn't carried across well. So although the 2 similarly timed shows, I could knock out like 4 or 5 or 6 We Need to Talk About Ghosts in the times it takes to do 1 Dark Paranormal. So it's an interesting one. And the Patreon ones are much quicker. Like one of the Patreon ones for We Need to Talk About Ghosts, I literally call a ramble, and I just turn on a handheld mic and I ramble for 30 minutes and I upload it, because it's not about the paranormal. I do a paranormal Patreon on a Sunday, which is normally just me and my partner discussing the paranormal. So again, it's a 30-minute conversation.
Yeah.
It doesn't take any editing. And the Dark Bites Patreon show for the Dark Paranormal, they're listener stories people have sent in, which couldn't make a full episode of the Dark Paranormal, normally due to length, because I like to focus on one story over 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So again, that's just, and I don't include sound effects on that or anything, because it just saves time. But there's a lot of work, but it's all mainly, I'm a morning person generally. So if I'm recording in the afternoon, funny enough, if I record a We Need to Talk About Ghosts in the afternoon, it can take 3 hours, because I'm tripping over my tongue. There's loads of things. If I'm not recording by 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm no good, really.
Yeah. So what experiences have you had? Because you seem quite scared of the paranormal happening to you in real life.
I am, yeah. It's funny you're saying that, because currently, again, as we were discussing, my partner's out the country for the next couple of weeks, and I'm alone in the house with the cat. But I'm skeptically minded, but I'm 100% a believer. So, and it's funny because people are aware that I've got 2 paranormal podcasts and that I am a complete believer. And a lot of my friends or people I know who are not believers will send me things that they think are scary and are genuine evidence. And I'll be the first one to debunk, so they'll be like, my mate's got this on the Zoom camera. And I'll be like, it's a spider on the lens. Or, something like that. Or, oh, look at these orbs in this room. And I'm like, yeah, that's dust. And they're using basically the flash and the camera. And they're quite disappointed that I'm not jumping on everything that they're saying. But experience-wise, I've from within the full gamut of the paranormal, I've had a spiritual experience when I was 16, where I came out my body, intentionally. And it's a very, I'll say it rather quick to save time, but in essence, I've not been able to do it since. But in essence, because I've been into the paranormal since I was like 5 or 6. And my friends who I've grew up with, one of them was a tarmacker, and he was doing a house somewhere in Wales. And there was a room with a load of old books on the floor. He found a book on astral projection, brought it back and gave it to me. And I skipped right to the chapter of how to do it. I was 16 at the time. And it said you need to focus on something. It said a clock, and then try and close your eyes and visualize the clock still moving. I didn't have a clock, so I lay on the top bunk bed where I lived in my dad's and stared at like an Artex ceiling and closed my eyes and tried to revisualize it. And I had the Sgt. Pepper album on repeat on CD. And middle of the afternoon, eventually I fell asleep anyway. And then my dad came in to the room and basically said, stop being so bone idle, like it's 4 PM, go and get a job, sort of thing. Instead of falling asleep in the afternoon. I woke up and looked at him and said, get out, like I'll be up in a minute, and shook my head and put my head back on the pillow. And the moment I put my head back on the pillow, I was sat up in bed.
Wow.
Immediately. And I literally remember thinking, I only had the time to think, hold on a minute. I haven't, and before I could even finish the thought of sat up, I was laying back down in bed and I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. And then I got pins and needles all over, and my body slowly came to life. And it was just a genuine thing that happened. And when people said, well, what was it like? What did, everything was normal. I was seeing the room. The only way I could describe it, and this is like it's the only way I've ever been able to describe it, is, either when you see oil on a road on a hot day and it's got like that black rainbow effect.
Yeah.
Or you press the screen of a calculator and you get that oily effect. That's how it felt. And I know that sounds ridiculous to say that's how, to say something felt like a color.
Yeah.
But that's how it felt. So that was a spiritual thing that I've had. In terms of actual paranormal things that have gone on, like the ones which are tangibly, that I can tangibly say have definitely happened. I've had a lot of the corner of the eye phenomena and stuff like that. But one, we went to a hotel in Anglesey called the Bulkley, which when we reviewed online said this particular room was haunted, and somebody gave it 1 star on TripAdvisor and said, we were woke up 2:30 by a vociferous ghost and asked for a refund. So anyway, we got this room, but just by sheer chance. My partner didn't believe it was chance. She thinks I asked for it, which it didn't.
Yeah.
But I took, I had an app on my phone, which was a dream recorder. It apparently would record you in your sleep if you spoke.
Yeah.
So it would record when there's noise. And I set that up and we went out for dinner. And when we came back, it said there were 64 recordings on it. And I was like, oh my God. So I started listening to them, and it was a car going past. It was birds outside. So I left it. And about 2 months later, I thought, I'll listen to the other 64. Just sat there in my dad's house. And I was going through them. And halfway through, you hear the wardrobe, this antique wardrobe that was in the room. You hear the door on that click open, like creak open. Then you hear it get kicked or like punched violently twice, like or slammed shut twice. Then there are knockings all around the room. There are things getting slid about. You can hear the ruffling of the bed. And my partner said, well, maybe it was the help or the help, like the people who work within the house or in the hotel. But the thing is, it didn't pick anyone coming into the room, whereas it did pick up us re-entering the room. So if anyone entered the room, it would have picked up.
Yeah.
So that was a tangible one. The other one, which is tangible, is my partner's a skeptic, but in the old flat that we used to live in, it was built on a paraffin works that was there during like the 1800s. Yes, it was 3 floors up, but we were both talking in the kitchen of this flat. It was a studio flat sort of thing. And as we're both talking, we see the lever of the tap in the kitchen start to rise up by itself, and the tap came on. And I'd already said that there'd been a few things that had gone on in that flat. Like we had slap lines, and we'd seen like somebody had ran the finger across the middle of them as we both sat there. And she said, that'll be a mouse like running along the bottom of the thing. But we didn't see anything leave, and I very cautiously went over to check, and there was nothing there. So we'd seen, those are 2 things that even she as a skeptic has seen. But I was forever in that apartment. I was forever saying, like we once heard, for example, the cat ripping up the carpet on the staircase.
Yeah.
And both shouted at her in the middle of the night, and then felt her at the bottom of the bed. And she was looking as in to say, what's like making that noise on the staircase? But my partner was always like trying to rationalize what was going on there. So in the flat where we used to live, it was always me saying, this has happened, and my partner saying, you're stupid. Now we've just moved into this house in March, and it turns out, I've done some research on this house. It turns out that this court that we live in was built on, it was the former site in the 1800s. There was 3 orphanages on this site and the church called the Church of Lost Souls or something. A church solely for the orphanages. There was an infant's orphanage, a young boys orphanage, and a young girls orphanage separated. They were all built on this site. From looking at the old maps, the old Ordnance Survey maps, this house sits either directly in the foyer of the church or directly in the left-hand corner of the infant's orphanage. Now, I personally have experienced not much, I've had corner of the eye phenomenon here, like, and I see the cat everywhere when she's in another room, so little black things running around the house. But my partner, very skeptical, does not believe in ghosts partner, has had like 4 or 5 things. She's called me from the bathroom and asked why I was knocking on the door when I've been downstairs. She's been in the bedroom and a t-shirt flew out of the wardrobe. But she's rationalized that I shoved it in far too tightly and it somehow squeezed its way out. She's been in the kitchen and has heard someone whistling in the living room. There are a couple of others as well, which I'm forgetting right now.
Yeah.
But the latest one that we've had, which again, when she shouts from upstairs, are you upstairs? I know something's happened if I'm not, because it means she thinks I am. So when I go upstairs, this was only 2 weeks ago. No, in fact, it was last week. I went upstairs. I said, no, why? She said, there's a scratching coming from the loft. And now we've just had the loft boarded and it's a clean loft. So I'm not saying it's not mice. I know from the old flat we were in what might sound like up in an attic or up in a false ceiling. But you can hear them running around as well if you've got them. So we both sat there in silence. And she said, I second guessed myself on whether I heard it, but the cat looked up as well. And that's when I knew. So we both sat there in silence, couldn't hear nothing. Then you heard it, and it was a genuine scratch on almost the plaster of the ceiling.
Yeah.
And no footsteps. And I know mice are light. I'm not expecting like dum as it runs off. But even I was saying, oh, it'll just be a mouse. But I can't help but think to the amount of stories, even going to the film The Exorcist, which start with some scratching or movement in a wall or an attic, and now that I'm on my own for the next couple of weeks, I am sleeping with the light on, very unashamedly. I've moved the cat's bed onto the bed because I need some company.
Yeah.
And 2 nights ago, I was on the couch and was down, as I say, in the house alone, and she ran down the stairs the fastest. I know cats can do this because they're skittish, but she ran down the stairs, almost skidded at the bottom of the stairs, and then like peered round the banister, looking up the stairs. This was about 11:30 at night, and when you're just thinking, "Oh, come on, do us a favor," like. So yeah, I've had enough experiences to convince me there's definitely something going on. Have I seen a full-on apparition? No.
Yeah.
Do I want to? No. In the same breath.
Is that why you don't want to go on a ghost hunt particularly?
No, I did see your invite. In all truth, I think my trouble is I am terribly, terribly short-sighted. And it's not that through vanity that I don't wear my glasses. It's through anxiety that I don't wear my glasses, really. So if I can't wear my glasses and walk through the city centre because I can see people's faces and I don't like that. If I don't have my glasses on, I'll skip through the city centre. I don't like, and it's a very weird sort of like thing that I've got, because I just see like pink blobs instead of people's faces.
Yeah.
And people will therefore, who know me, think that I'm probably dead ignorant because They're like, I waved at you and you didn't see me, or you didn't say hello. But I don't like wearing my glasses because I don't like making eye contact, and it's a bit of a weird thing that I've got. And therefore, like, oh, in fact, we had a very interesting thing. Speaking of seeing things, that kind of came out on a Patreon episode. So about 3 weeks ago, I was sat on the couch, and I didn't have my glasses on, and I was reading a book, and I looked into the kitchen, and the light was off in the kitchen, and the door was open a crack, and I looked up, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's someone stood in the doorway. I can see the top of the head, like where the light changes, where they've stopped blocking the light." And I couldn't move with fear. And then I was like, "Oh no, hold on. I know that we've got small shelves that jut out at that same height." So I was like, "Right, that's fine. That's it. Carry on reading." Anyway, then we're doing a Patreon the other day, and my partner sat in where I was sat. And I said, "Oh, I must tell you," I said, "I was terrified the other night." I said, "I was sat there, da 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 da." And she looks and she goes, You can't see those shelves from here." And I was like, "What?" And I came over and put my and you can't see those shelves from there.
Yeah.
So, but I'd rationalized it without my glasses on. That's what that'll be. But yes, I don't know what I'd do for seeing an actual spectre is the thing. I love, it's one of those things. I love being terrified. I love being scared, but I can put myself over the edge to where there's a really good, have you ever read the book Will Storr Versus the Supernatural?
No.
You should, anyone into the paranormal should read that. He's an amazing journalist. He's basically a freelance journalist. He does like war missions and stuff, and loads of interesting articles. And he was asked by Loaded magazine, which used to be like a lads mag back in the day, to do an article for Halloween. So he starts with this one article, and he experiences something at the start in chapter 1, which is the article that leads him on to write this entire book about the paranormal and to go investigating it. And it's one of the best up and down. You go with him through belief, disbelief, all the way through. It's a fantastic book. But there's part within the book which hits home for me, really. And it's not because I'm also a very, very lapsed Catholic, but he is too within the book. And what he says, what makes him write the book, is he experiences something in this chapter, in the article, if you like. He goes expecting to take the Michael out of this situation where there's a psychic and there's a medium, and he experiences an event which he can't explain. And when he does that, he writes down his feelings, and it's like, now, if I have to accept that there's life after death, then that means I have to accept that there's possible repercussions on how I'm living my life now. And if I have to accept that, that means my entire worldview changes. And the nearest, I'm starting to ramble a bit, but the nearest I can get to what I mean is, when I astrally projected when I was 16, I didn't sleep for about a full week afterwards. And the reason for it was because it happened when I didn't want or expect it to happen. It happened when I'd just woken up. As opposed to me thinking, now, and I'm out my body. So therefore, I was kind of fearful of going to sleep in case it happened again. And also what freaked me out was at the back of that book, it said other books by the same author. And it was a book on levitation. It was a book on invisibility. It was a book on, stuff which I'm like, they can't be real. But at the same time, I'm like, but I've just experienced this.
Miracles.
And it kind of blew my mind. So I don't know what to do if I see an actual spectre. I've been on calls like this when I've done We Need to Talk About Ghost interviews. And in the old flat, I'd have a big screen telly behind me. And there's been a couple of very serendipitous moments where that television's just either came on or turned off. And it's always been when I've been at the peak of fear or interest in somebody's like paranormal tale. So I don't know.
Well, you're opening yourself up as you do your job, your work. You are sending out, you're tuning in, and they will respond. I know you're not directly ghost hunting, but there's an aura around you of he's thinking about us, and he might, you know what I mean. So I think you
Yeah.
are sending out a signal. But I know you're limited time. I did a tarot card reading. I'm not a tarot card reader, okay?
Yeah.
I own tarot cards just for the fun of it. And I wanted to do a little experiment. So I drew 3 cards at random for you, right? And I did a little reading because I don't know you, you don't know me, okay? So we're both skeptical, but I thought what I'll do is I'll draw 3 cards and I'll see if this has any relevance to you. Okay? Is that you all right?
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm all for this. Yeah.
Right. So the first card was the Lovers, and it talks about romantic bliss. Okay, so this describes you, what you're in. It seems to be the most important thing. The most important card was your relationship to Becca, I imagine.
Yeah.
I know that much. And there are going to be some choices that you as a couple have to make, some big demands on you and decisions. And the next card was Wheel of Fortune reversed, which basically means like there's changes ahead. You know, when a wheel goes up, some things are good, but then other things are bad, and things are always changing. Positive, good, yeah, good luck, bad luck. So it's sort of talking about there's a big change ahead, probably now. If you've got like the past, you and Becca are all set up, and then currently you've had this thing happen, and you're like, oh, we have to deal with this. And it's large. It's going to affect both of you. There's a new phase coming. It was the card, and there's a feeling of insecurity that you both have because of this lack of seeing what's ahead. And then the third card was the Sun reversed, which again backs up uncertainty and feeling overcome and overwhelmed. Is there something that you've just known about that's going to affect yours and Becca's? Like I know she's away in Saudi now. Is there like something that not a divide emotionally between you two, but is there something that you two as a couple is going to change your overview and the way that your world operates right now?
Well, it's an interesting one because as I would say that very interestingly, she's just finished a very secure piece of employment. So, so this work that she's currently doing while she's away, it's freelance. She's a freelancer. So by the very nature of the beast, she, the work is not sporadic, but the work is also not secure. So she is literally just within the last month ended like a secure two-year contract of guaranteed income. So that's just changed, which is a bit of a, considering we've just moved into a new house, that's a not a concern, but that's something which is on both of our radars. And there could potentially be other stuff there which I wouldn't be comfortable going into.
But, I thought that might be the case.
But yeah, there could. I don't think you're 100%. It's a very interesting reading. There,
the thing about tarot cards is I give you the answer and then you come up.
But do you think that could be? I mean, also just to let you know, I've been like given the green light to go till 9, so I don't know whether that frees you up at all. It's basically I've got someone dropping a guitar off. I've got someone dropping a guitar off that they've now said they're going to be 20 minutes late. So yeah, it's an interesting one because genuinely speaking now, because I do believe in divination as such. In fact, very quick tale. When I was about 16, again around that period, it was an interesting time. I lost my mother when I was 16, and it was a very, as you can imagine, it was a very emotional time, and your emotions were high. But me and my mum used to play psychic games. And when I say psychic games, she was very interested in the paranormal, which is probably where I get it from.
Yeah.
But there was once, do you remember in the News of the World, there was Mystic Meg, and she once done a column about psychometry and how to do it. And I must have been about maybe 13, 14 at the time. And I said to my mum, pass us your wedding ring then, and I'm going to try and do it. And anyway, I read through the steps in the magazine, just a Sunday handout thing. And I closed my eyes, held the ring, And I said to her, right, here's where you sat. You in a small green room. I said, there's a big mirror that blocks out the window. I said, you're with your two sisters. I said all this stuff. And she was like taken aback and was like, you just described the box room in my dad's house where it was when I got married. I was like, you're joking. Anyway, then she passes away. And I remember that we'd done this sort of thing. And I then went through a phase of saying to people, passes your jewelry and I'll tell you something. And one thing I could always get right or wrong, genuine, not right or wrong. One thing I would always get right I could take you on a tour of your house. This is like, I'm 43 now, but this when I was 16. So I'd hold a piece of jewelry and it'd be like, right, I've come into your house, on the right the stairs, it's red carpet, I'm going up there. Now it turns into laminate on the landing. And they're like, yeah. And I'm going like, and on the left, there's a dartboard in that room. And they're like, yeah. And I'd be pretty accurate. Anyway, I used to be friends with a woman who worked in the off license at the bottom of the shop, bottom of the road even, mainly because she would serve me vodka, although I was 16. And and you could smoke in shops back then as well. So I'd normally bunk off sixth form, get a quarter bottle of vodka and sit in the shop with this lady called Eileen. And we'd sit there all day. And she was a lovely woman. She was like in her 60s. Anyway, one day we get talking about about ghosts and paranormal and stuff. And I say, funny enough, I can do this thing. I said, I'm very good at it where I can take you on a tour around your house or I can tell you something about an object. So she says, oh, wait there. So she goes out into the back and she comes back and she passes me a watch and says, tell me what you get from that. So I was, all right, okay. Now, normally when I used to do this, it would be like, I would see in my mind's eye, I feel like, colored images of like, dreamscapes, whichever. When she passed me this watch, there was sharp, like snapped images, but in black and white I was like, oh, so this is really, and it felt like holding something spiky, which sounds stupid, but it was just a watch. But I was like, right, I said, I'm seeing, and I've got my eyes closed while I'm telling her this. I said, weirdly, I'm in my dad's hall. I said, it's black and white. I said, I'm holding the flex off a Hoover. I said, and I'm looking up at the banister. I said, and now I'm in like a clearing and I can see a bus stop. I said, and over the road from this dual carriageway, there's a huge, like almost red brick building. I said, but it's cycling through those three images over and over and over again. I said, and I feel a bit sick. And then I opened my eyes and went, and that's all I'm getting. I said, dead weird. Past her, and she was crying. And I was like, what's wrong? You're okay? And she said, no, I got this off my brother. She said, and he hung himself using the flex of a Hoover in a clearing behind a dual carriageway opposite this red brick building. And funny enough, well, not funny enough, but like coincidentally, I'd never seen this building before in my life, but I drove past it about a month after that with my dad. It's a place in Kirby. It's an industrial estate. I think it was a News International building or something. And it wasn't exactly as I seen it, but as I approached it, the building was coming up on the left, and I thought, I'm sure that's that building. And if it is, there's a bus stop opposite. And if there is, there's a clearing behind that bus stop. And when I turned around, there's the bus stop, there's the clearing. And I got a cold shiver down my thing. Yeah. I thought, you know what? I'm never doing that again, because that was horrible. And it was always a nice party game, fun. Oh, you done this, didn't you? Da-da-da-da-da. And really, really quite accurate. Like giving some. I remember once, like somebody gave me a piece of jewelry in the place I worked, because I left sixth form halfway through. Just when my mum died, I just went and got a job.
Sure.
And the place that I worked, someone gave me a piece of jewelry and said, "Yeah, tell me what you think about that." And I think that it was Meritia or something. Can't remember it exactly now, but it was something like Meritia was the name that came to me. And I went, all I'm getting to the name's Meritia. And the woman put her hand to her chest and was like, that's what we called me mum. And my mum gave me the ring, like something really bizarre.
Yeah.
So then I stopped doing it because it was such a weird thing. And I didn't like that feeling. And I've tried it since, doesn't work. When I tell the story to people, the first thing they do is say, "What you get from that?" Yeah. And then I'm like, it doesn't work. I said, I don't know what to tell you. I can't do it anymore.
I would suggest to you that you get a crystal ball, or at least try one.
I'm looking at one now. I've got divination wise, there's a crystal ball there, there's a pendulum there. The only one thing I'm not allowed in the house is a Ouija board. But
Yeah.
I've tried a crystal ball only once or twice, to be honest. I've not really. It's more decorative, so I've not really.
Yeah, I have one, and with the team, I'd give them it, and we'd try it on. We're always trying weird stuff like that, and yeah, they looked at it and they saw faces and stuff. Whereas I don't see anything. I think I'm so skeptical.
Yeah.
Can't push through, but I like to keep trying, and we always kind of douse with a pendulum to see what's going to come through the Ouija board.
Yeah.
You know, to see if it's going to match up. You commented on our episode that you did on us that how this guy is so blasé about using a Ouija board. Do you know what I mean? We've had 12 years of having no problem with a Ouija board because it's all about the intention. And if you go into church as a teenager with a Ouija board and you have the intention to mess about and piss somebody off, that's what you'll attract. Whereas we enter and we're like, we are here to respectfully talk to anyone friendly. We're reaching out friendly. Don't be a dick back. You know what I mean? We're like, be respectful back. And nothing but nice spirits have come through, really.
It's an interesting one, that. I mean, the Ouija board especially, because when I've had conversations with skeptics about Ouija boards, the thing which annoys me is the wrong word, but when you're speaking to a skeptic, that they don't understand, as someone into the paranormal, that you've went through all of the logical steps of debunking the thing. You understand all of the reasons why it could be faked, how it could be faked. So when they say, oh, it's just someone pushing it, then they don't understand that, yes, it may well be, and they might be doing it subconsciously, but don't you find that fascinating that something could be then given that information to the subconscious? You know, there's so many different levels that you can look at it on. But also on your point there, where you're saying you've had nothing but nice spirits coming through, it's are you not fearful though? Like, because I've also been to pubs, for example, which have reputedly had nothing but nice people. It's a nice place, and that had the odd idiot walk in and cause trouble. So you're not concerned that at some point that could be the case?
We've had people who say demon. We've had people who say Zozo. Don't get me wrong, but when you ask them, come on then, prove you're a demon, because if you're gonna, you know, and they can't, and eventually they say, yeah, my name's just David. I was 16 and I'm just a teenager. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I'd have run away when they said demon, I would have been like, Ouija boards are evil. Da, da, da. But no, we're like, well, okay, well, we're here to see what you can do. Please do it. And they're like, all right, yeah, I'm not a demon. Do you know what I mean? We just see it through to its conclusion. I'm not saying we haven't recently got a demon story, but that's another time. But yeah, Ouija boards, I would also add to your comments there that all the tests I've done, putting decks of cards on top of the planchette, every time the top card on the planchette does move. So I would say, yes, we do subconsciously move it.
Yeah.
That is not the problem, okay? The next hurdle is, how do we find out things that can be verified that we shouldn't know? We've had spirits say where lost keys of ours are. We've been in a derelict farm and they've said, go and check the room upstairs for my red diary. And all the room has been scattered books. We find a red book, it's a diary. And we're like, whether we move the thing or not, that's not what's at stake here. We're talking about the information.
That's the point that that when I say, when a skeptic says to me, oh, but people are pushing it, I'm like, yep, I'm not doubting that they are. We've had the same thing. We've had one guy who sat out of a session. I say a session, it was when we were like teenagers, so it wasn't like we were doing anything, you know, and attempted in a professional way. But he sat out and was taking notes and was a complete skeptic, and therefore said, all right, if it's real, ask it the first house number that we lived in when we lived in Indonesia, because he lived in Indonesia. And we did, or Sri Lanka, sorry. And we did, and it said, what, like 117. And he went, see, it's a load of crap, because it was number 8. And we went, all right, fair enough. And we stopped playing. And then he came back the next day and said, ask me mum and dad. And it was 117. We only lived there for 2 days, but then we moved to number 8.
Yes.
And it's like, is it, because also then the theories wise, it could be a case of, well, is it everybody's collective subconscious that's gathering that information from somewhere? Does it necessarily have to be an external force coming in to give the information?
Yeah.
Is it, because I've always had this theory that, and I'm sure I'm not the first one to think about it, but like, for example, you know, in very like just for myself in layman's terms, if I go to pick up like this e-cig now, I know I can pick the e-cig up, and I pick the e-cig up. Do you know what I mean? And I believe I can pick the e-cig up. I pick the e-cig up. I think 9 times out of 10, when you're talking about scary stories, your belief, what you know can happen, is up here, say, and your belief level is down here, say, when you hear a scary story. And I think the more you talk about it, getting onto what you touched on before about your heightened senses, I think it's interesting when you hear people say stories like, we were doing the Ouija board and then, or we were telling ghost stories and then, because I think in everyone's brain that these levels exist. And the more you tell those scary stories, the more your belief level starts to rise to meet. So, for example, when I want to pick up that e-cig, I think I can pick up the e-cig. I believe I can pick up the e-cig. They meet. I can pick up the e-cig. I think sometimes as your belief level rises, there's a certain clinch point where if everyone in the same room reaches that at the same time, a clock will fly off the wall, or, you know, something will happen because some sort of momentum's been built and acted upon somehow.
I agree with that, because when we do as a team the Ouija board, we all come together and it's like a really well tuned in radio. Whereas when you get an external element, a newbie, and you let them join, something's not quite right. It's like you've got to retune it. It's like, I'm not saying you're interfering with it, but you learn that you're all focused. You all believe. There's no intimidation of a skeptic going, then go on then, lads, show me how to do it. And that ruins the vibe, you know. So I think you're onto something there. Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, and I tell you what I did see as well, which I haven't seen before, talking about divination and the likes, is in the shop in Liverpool city centre that I can't get a Ouija board from because I'm not allowed one. From Becca. Yeah. There's a pendulum board which I've not seen.
I've made one of those. Is it A opposite A and Z opposite Z and a circle? Yeah, I made one of those. Yeah, I thought I was the first one, and now I discovered other people have done it.
Yeah. No, it was a proper, like, you know, like wooden carved one. Like it was a gift to buy sort of thing. Yeah. And I debated getting that, but like Becca's got me read to a fine art in terms of the paranormal. She's like, no, because you'll go too far. You know, she says definitely she won't have a Ouija board in the house because I will put everything down to, like, I will snowball paranormal activity in my head. And that's why I'm sleeping with lights on. And, you know, for example, I was doing a recording yesterday for a Patreon episode in the kitchen, middle of the day, testing out this new equipment, just talking away. Next thing, a tape measure, like one, you know, where the thing comes out and snaps back in.
Yeah.
Falls to the floor in the center of the kitchen. Now, I didn't see it. There was no peripheral movement, so I don't know where it. I don't think it apported from somewhere. And arguably, you know, it just fell off by whatever reason. But I don't know. At the same time, you know, because I'm on my own, I could easily start sewing things together. And that's where it becomes an issue. I think you've got to be really mentally strong. I think. If or not mentally strong, there's a very strange tightrope you've got to walk when you're into the paranormal, like you and I are. There's a very particular tightrope that you've got to walk between rationale and belief, in order to stay keen on it as well, I suppose. Because if you fall either side of it, you either lose your interest or you get into a very dangerous mental situation, I think. And I've seen people do that. I've seen, you know, I've had conversations with people who like, there's a person who I won't name who where I think I am within the sphere of belief in the paranormal right now. They were on a similar jaunt to me, you know, and we could have these sorts of conversations about maybe 5-6 years ago. And I've ran into them recently. And they're not, you know, they've gone, if you like. They're now talking about, like, they're talking about stuff which even I am thinking, like, you know, you didn't stand in the back garden. Like, you know, I don't know how much you know about UFOs and the like, in that area, but you know, this is it CE7 communication or whichever, where you can allegedly stand in the back garden and bring lights out of the sky towards you. They think they can do all this. Now, I'll believe anyone doing anything, but I won't believe someone on a council estate reckoning that only they are seeing these UFOs appear in the sky above them, and they're calling down to
Okay.
And it made me think I need to always have someone to rein me back in, I think.
Well, Kevin, I'm not going to keep you any longer. I know you've got things to do. Would you consider coming on again?
Yes, of course. Yeah, anytime, mate. The thing is, it's not a fad for me, the paranormal. This is the thing which I've always had to kind of battle with. Is it's an interesting thing. It's because, funny enough, in the podcast land, we need to talk about ghosts. Gives me a reputation that I don't know the topic. With some podcasters, I've found, I'm not saying that I demand respect or anything stupid like that, but it's given when I've been on certain podcasts, I can tell there's been a well, you're just here for laughs, or you're only in it because you think podcasts are popular or something. And I'm like, mate, you wasn't like trying to form. You wasn't going around fourth year infants with a sheet asking people to join your ghost club. Do you know what I mean? So it's an interesting one. So yeah, I'm always up for a chat about the paranormal with anyone at any time. So yeah. 100%.
Great. Well, that's where I'm going to wrap this. And thanks once again for coming on.
Very welcome, mate. Thank you for the invite.
No worries. Everyone check out Kevin's podcasts.
Please do.